How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to another episode of the Pride Report. I'm here with Sean Bock. Today, me and Sean are going to be breaking down the South region of the NCAA Tournament. We're going to start with some initial thoughts on the bracket. Here's a look at it now. As biased as I am, I think that Virginia got screwed here. I'm not sure why the committee felt the need to put the best 4 seed and the best 5 seed in the number 1 overall seeds bracket. Arizona is one of the most talented teams in the country and one that has been playing extremely well as of late, while Kentucky is arguably just as talented and also finding their groove. In my opinion, these are two of the most dangerous teams in the NCAA tournament, so I don't like the decision to place them in the region of the unquestioned top overall seed. While I trust Virginia more than any other team in the conference tournament, I do think there is a strong possibility that they will lose in the Sweet 16, especially after the loss of DeAndre Hunter, which seriously hurts them on the offensive end. But back to their draw, I am just very disappointed in the committee for making this decision. I think that it is blatantly unfair. But moving on from that, speaking of teams with brutal draws, let's talk about Buffalo. What a nightmarish draw for the Bulls, who have to face Arizona in the first round. I wish that the committee had given the Bulls a 12, as the matchups on the 5 line would give them a good chance to make some noise, but instead Buffalo is a 13 and facing an Arizona team that, like I mentioned, is very talented and piping hot at the moment. I do not see Buffalo having a good chance to win that game. My final initial takeaway to kind of transition us into the rest of the show is how much fun this bracket is going to be. I think you see 5 teams with a good chance to win, and there is a handful of potential intriguing matchups. For example, Arizona and Kentucky in the round of 32 would be insane. We could also see UVA and Cincinnati in the regional final, which would be a matchup of two of the toughest defenses in the country. It's going to be a ton of fun. And with that, Sean, let's get to you. What were your initial takeaways and overall thoughts on how the South bracket turned out?
Noah, you touched on Virginia getting screwed, and I agree with you 100%. Not only they have to play eventually Kentucky or Arizona in the Sweet 16, but they also have to play a team like Creighton or Kansas State with great guards, and especially I think Creighton will obviously beat Kansas State in that first round matchup. But I think with that matchup against Creighton's very scrappy, very good offensively, very good guards, and that's just a team that's going to give Virginia a lot of trouble. But overall, you said it too. This is a really good bracket. I think other than Virginia, it's pretty wide open. Obviously, Kentucky and Arizona are playing some great ball. Tennessee and Cincinnati are also playing fairly well lately. Very two good defensive teams. Would not be surprised to see them in the Sweet 16 and that game be like 40 to like 38 or something like that. Two very good defensive-minded groups. And then you have some of these other mid-major teams like Nevada could make a run. I think that matchup against Texas will be really fun to watch. Loyola, I know that's a very trendy upset pick. And even a team, like those teams right there are very solid groups. I think anyone can really make a run at Virginia, but I'm just really excited to get this baby going.
So before we move on to the prediction segment, I thought that we should talk a little bit about one of the biggest stories in college basketball right now, and that is, of course, Virginia's DeAndre Hunter. It was announced that he would miss the rest of the season with a broken wrist. So, Sean, I have to ask you, how do you think that injury is going to impact Virginia's chances at a Final Four run?
Well, first of all, it stinks to see a great player and great person like DeAndre Hunter go down with an injury in the most important time of the year, and how much he's meant to Virginia during his first year there. So from that standpoint, just think to see a guy who's put in so much work, so much time, and so important to a team go down with an injury right before the best time of the year. But I think, yes, the DeAndre Hunter injury, when everyone saw that, they were freaking out. Everyone was like, wow, no way Virginia makes it now. I'd be surprised if they get to the Sweet 16 or make it past the Sweet 16. But that bracket, I still have Virginia going to the Final Four just out of the fact that there's a lot of pieces still here, and this team can still play great defense, and that's what's going to get them far. Obviously, their offense is a little worrisome. They do shoot well from three, but Hunter shot 38%, which they'll miss that too. They'll miss Mock. They'll miss him. They will miss his production on both sides of the floor. But overall, I think this Virginia team they know how to handle adversity. They're an experienced group. They'll be able to figure out what they can do to be successful without Hunter. I have all the confidence in the world in Tony Bennett and the coaching staff to get things right. And I think with Kyle Guy and Ty Jerome in the backcourt, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll just be just fine. Now, I'm not saying they'll be national champions,
Hmm.
but I still think they can make it to the Final Four.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think that everyone was kind of overreacting. Um, I still think that Virginia is a national title contender, but I will acknowledge that the loss of Hunter is absolutely huge, probably even bigger than a lot of casual fans think, because Hunter is unpredictable. He's very versatile, and he can operate inside, he can operate outside. He's just such a useful piece. So Virginia is definitely going to suffer from the loss of Hunter, but I really don't think that it ends their national title hopes. It just hurts them. All right, now let's get into our predictions for this region. This is how this is going to work. First, we're going to start off by talking about our favorite sleeper, deep sleeper, and the top seed most likely to suffer an early exit. I'll go first. My favorite is Virginia. They have quite the path to the Final Four, but there has not been a single team in college basketball as consistently dominant as the Hoos this season. My sleeper is Tennessee. The Vols are legit. Grant Williams is a matchup nightmare regardless of the opponent, and their defense is capable of slowing down anybody. My deep sleeper is Davidson. There are few teams in all of college basketball hotter than Davidson, who has won 11 of 13, including 3 consecutive in the Atlantic 10 tournament to earn an NCAA tournament bid. Be sure to familiarize yourself with the Wildcats trio of Peyton Aldridge, Kellen Grady, and John Axel Goodmanson, because those 3 players have a chance to be household names as early as next week. This is a very efficient team on the offensive end of the floor, so I could definitely see them pulling off an upset over Kentucky. And finally, the high seed I see making an early exit is Miami. Without Bruce Brown, I don't like the Hurricanes' chances to make a run. I believe that they will lose to Loyola Chicago. But how about you, Sean? Who is your favorite sleeper, deep sleeper, and the top team you could see making an early exit in that order?
Well, I see we had 3 out of 4, same one. So
Mm.
with the favorite, I'm taking Virginia. I love that guard duo of Kyle Guy and Ty Jerome. This team's just clicking well. I mean, they got guys who can shoot. Defense has definitely been their strong suit throughout the season. My only concern with them is how they can get offense consistently. My sleeper is going to be Kentucky. They've been hot lately, played really well in the SEC tournament. Wenyon Gabriel's been playing some great ball lately. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's looking like a pro. Kevin Knox is looking like a lottery pick. These guys are clicking at the right time. John Calipari has his team playing great ball, and I think they can make a run if they get past Arizona and Virginia. It's not going to be easy. Even the first round game against Davidson, which leads into my next point, is going to be a great matchup. So with that, my deep sleeper team is going to be Davidson. Like you said, Peyton Aldridge, Keelan Grady, 2 guys that really know how to put the ball in the bucket, combined for 39.5 points. And this Davidson team, I think, puts up maybe over 8, I think it's 84.8 points per game, which is 7th in the country. And I'm coming out with an article later today with 4 Cinderella teams, and Davidson's my pick. I think if they can get past Kentucky, Arizona, that's going to be an interesting matchup because I'm not really sure who they have that can guard DeAndre Ayton, but we'll worry about that when the time comes. But I think if you have guys who can put the ball in the bucket and can score high numbers, then you have a chance against anyone in the tournament. And the high seed that I see making, or I see exiting early is Miami. Coming into the season, Miami was a top 20 team. They've had their ups and downs. Bruce Brown, that's a very tough guy to lose. Lonnie Walker's been playing well lately, but they just need other guys like Jaquan Newton and a couple other players to step up and deliver, and they haven't really had that lately. So I think Loyola Chicago, very well coached team. Porter Moser's done a great job over there. Clayton Custer is a great floor general. Overall, this team's just very solid, and I think they got all the pieces necessary to make a run.
All right, now let's take a look at each of our South brackets in their entirety. I'll go first, starting with the top half. Virginia will beat UMBC, of course. I then have Kansas State over Creighton in a very close game. I don't trust Creighton considering how they finished the season. Then I have Davidson over Kentucky in a big upset. Like I mentioned earlier, I think Davidson has great Cinderella potential due to their ability to shoot the basketball. Granted, this is a very risky selection as Kentucky has Final Four talent and they are clicking at the right time, like you mentioned, Sean. But there's just something about this Davidson team that screams Cinderella. And then finally, I have Arizona beating Buffalo by 10 or more. Moving along to the round of 32 in the top half, I think Virginia beats Kansas State. I think Arizona beats Davidson. Davidson's lack of size will seriously hurt them in this matchup. They don't really have anyone that can defend DeAndre Ayton, so I would expect that Ayton is going to run all over them if this matchup does happen. And then in the Sweet 16, I have Virginia over Arizona, but I definitely see Arizona having a chance. The Wildcats are not great defensively, but even Virginia won't be able to slow down DeAndre Ayton. If Ayton can do what Marvin Bagley did to UVA's defense in January, then Arizona is going to have a great chance to knock off the top overall seed. But let's get to you, Sean. Who do you have in the top half of the South?
The top half of the South, I'm going to go with Virginia. UMBC, props to them. They pulled off a miracle against Vermont, which was awesome, but I think Virginia's going to be too much. The next one, Creighton, Kansas State. This one's very tough for me. I literally spent 10 minutes last night looking at this game, looking up numbers, seeing who's going to win, and I got to tell you, I really don't know.
Yeah.
I don't feel safe with any team in this one. I mean, Creighton, great guards, and Kansas State, Dean Wade, and Barry Brown are coming off injuries. They did not play in their final game of the Big 12 tournament. So I think a week of practice or a couple days of practice did them good. But I think I got to give the nod to Creighton here. I'm not a huge Bruce Weber guy. He hasn't had much success in the tournament other than the Illinois team in 2005. But with that, I think I'm just going to go with Creighton. And then Kentucky Davidson. I know I said I'm very high on Davidson. Peyton Aldridge, Keelan Grady, great duo. I hope they can somehow find a way to beat the Wildcats. But I think John Calipari has his team playing its best basketball of the year. And with that, I think there's really no way that this Davidson team can overcome that. And I think they'll keep it close. I would be surprised if it's a double-digit win. But I think Kentucky's going to come away with it in the end. And then the Arizona-Buffalo, another very good game. Buffalo has 4 guys that average more than 14 points per game, which is very good. Very balanced ball club. Arizona, obviously, with DeAndre Ayton, Raleigh Elkins, Alonzo Trier, one of the best trios in college basketball, no doubt. But I just think Sean Miller, his team is going to be very motivated after all the stuff that's gone off the court, off the court, and just be fired up for this game. I think Buffalo, like with the Davidson-Kentucky game, is going to give Arizona a scare, but I think they're going to find a way to pull it out. So going to the round of 32, Virginia and Creighton. This game scares me for Virginia. I think Creighton, great guards, like I talked about. It's going to be a very fun guard matchup, but Creighton's just a scrappy team. It can give Virginia a lot of issues. I think Virginia's going to find a way to control the tempo and really shut down those guys. So I'm going to take Virginia. And then Kentucky, Arizona. I'm going to take the Cats in this one. The Cats. There's just so many Cats, Wildcats.
4 Wildcats in the top half of the South bracket. That's crazy.
Yeah. That just threw me off so much. But I'm going to take Kentucky. At the beginning of the year, if you would have asked me, would you take Arizona or Kentucky in the NCAA tournament, I'd take Arizona any day. But now with the way Kentucky's playing, I just don't see a scenario where they lose to a team like Arizona, despite all that talent. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is playing way too well lately, and I think that's going to be the real difference for them. And then going to Virginia, Kentucky in the Sweet 16, another tough matchup. Obviously, Kentucky's a little bit bigger, a little more athletic than Virginia, but I just got to take Virginia. I think the more experienced team and experienced guards take you a long way in the NCAA tournament. So I'm going to give the nod to the Cavaliers in this one.
All right. As for the bottom half of my bracket, I believe that Loyola Chicago will beat Miami. I have a lot of questions about Miami on both sides of the ball without Bruce Brown. The lack of consistent scoring threats worries me more than anything for this Hurricanes team. Then I have Tennessee over Wright State. I then have Texas over Nevada. I believe that Nevada was chronically overseeded. Then I'll take Cincinnati over Georgia State. I like Georgia State. I think that they are a good team, but Cincinnati does not typically mess around with easier competition. And as for the next 2 rounds, I like Tennessee over Loyola Chicago and Cincinnati over Texas in a blowout. As for the Sweet 16, I'll go with Cincinnati. This would be a great matchup as both teams have top 15 defenses nationally, but I like the Bearcats. And as for the regional final between Virginia and Cincinnati, another highly intriguing matchup from a defensive standpoint, I'll take Virginia. Don't get me wrong, I love this Cincinnati team. I think the Bearcats are tough, disciplined, experienced, and brutal on the defensive end, but it is so hard to bet against Virginia considering their accomplishments this season. Obviously, the loss of DeAndre Hunter is going to hurt, but I still have so much confidence in this team considering what they did in the regular season. But I'll get to you, Sean. What does your bracket look like in the bottom half of the South, and who do you have advancing to the Final Four?
At the beginning of the show, I was very high on Loyola, so I'm going to roll with them against Miami. Tennessee and Wright State, I'm going to take Tennessee. I just think that defense is too much. And then
Mhm.
Nevada, Texas. I mean, Texas, great freshman. Mo Bamba has been injured lately, so I think it'll be interesting to see how hard he can go. So I'm going to take Nevada on that one. Cincinnati, Georgia State, like you said, no, this Cincinnati team does not mess around. Obviously, I have trust issues with their offense. It hasn't been all that great, but I think they'll find a way. Then Loyola, Tennessee, another matchup I had a hard time picking. I think I'm going to roll with Tennessee in that one. I think their defense is going to be what takes them in this one. And then Nevada, Cincinnati. Nevada likes to get out and run, put up numbers. Cincinnati likes to grind them out, beat you up, play defense. So I think Cincinnati is going to come away with the victory in that one. And then Tennessee and Cincinnati, Sweet 16. I think I'm going to take Tennessee. I think their offense is just a tad better. Virginia and Tennessee in the Elite Eight. I think I'm going to have to roll with Virginia.
All right, that's going to wrap up this show. If you want to check out our other NCAA tournament regional breakdowns, links will be in the description. We will see you there. Enjoy the tournament, everybody.